This is now the sixth day we're shedding light on this. I spoke with a former executive director of Salt Lake City 911 dispatch, Stephen Meyer, about this. He started with the city in 2021. He was terminated in 2023. Now, according to Meyer, he tried to report a few different problems within the local communications realm, and the statewide comms project is just one of them.
So when I first started, this was obviously a years-long project. Many years from UCA and all the agencies around the state. They'd already made the decision that they're going to do this statewide radio project. Salt Lake City had some significant concerns, regarding the amount of channels that they were going to have. We're in a urban area with a lot of, high rises. What kind of reception they were going to get, because there were some reports that there were some other agencies across the country with the same radio system that had those issues. So Salt Lake City decided that they were going to go it alone and they were going to build their own radio system. I was 100% on board with that plan. I was supportive in trying to, figure out a way for us all to get on the same page. And be able to do that, because I thought that was best for Salt Lake City. When you're talking about thousands of officers and thousands of different radios across the state the size of Utah and as remote as most of Utah is, there's a lot of potential for problems there. And for Salt Lake, it made more sense for us to go it alone. Well, UCA got involved and they threatened the city administration that they were going to come forward and they were going to legislate, go through the legislative process and basically force us to go with them if we don't play, the quote was play nice, and go along with them. And so the city didn't want to risk the funding that we would lose by making that move and going it alone. And so they backed out and decided, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and go along with this, despite the objections of myself. I was the 911 executive director, and I know the other two chiefs. I won't speak for them, but I know they had similar concerns.
What do you make of the coverage that you've seen and the information that we've put out there kind of on a simple basis or very surface level?
I thought that, I wish I could say I was surprised, but unfortunately, this is one of those cases where I just thought in my head, man, I told you so. Anyone that was involved in the planning in this could see this coming. Prior to the radio system rollout, UCA launched a statewide 911 system. And that rollout was plagued with problems. And that was one of the initial discussions that we had at Salt Lake City, that, man, they couldn't roll out the phone system without a ton of glitches. This project is infinitely bigger than that. We didn't have the confidence in them that they were going to be able to pull this off.
Now, as someone who works in this realm and worked here specifically in this realm, what, from your experience, would be the roots of the problems for glitches? It seems like in this case, I'm not a radio expert, but I'm trying to do some homework. Seems like there's many possible issues here. It's not just one and one fix, right?
Yeah, there's multiple failures. I know Director Matthew had mentioned that there's some, old technology being used. Agencies didn't update their systems. But then you've also got competing interests, right? What's good for Salt Lake City isn't necessarily good for St. George, right? You've got all these different competing political interests in play. And then on top of that, the technological side, right? We get kind of in the weeds when we start talking about the coverage areas and things like that. But you have an area the size of Utah, and you're trying to give coverage on 100% of the grounds, and you can't do that. It's just like your cell phone, right? Yeah, you're going to have good coverage, probably in Salt Lake and, the Salt Lake Valley, but you start going out to some of the more remote parts of the state, it's going to be a challenge. And so you've got multiple failure points. You have a lack of leadership that has been, demonstrated throughout this. Halfway through the project, UCA lost their executive director. I think that probably hurt because you had somebody that was in charge of it coming in midway, and Director Matthews, she's competent. She's been around for a long time. But when you change leaders halfway through a project like that, it doesn't bode well for, the technical side of it.
From your perspective, why would police chiefs, sheriffs, fire chiefs, the governor, anyone that oversees people that are physically using this system and are experiencing issues, why won't they share their concerns publicly?
UCA publicly has threatened, publicly behind the scenes, has threatened these agencies with funding, political retribution, legislative action. If you don't go along with them, they're going to find a way to make you go along with them. And for these agencies, especially the smaller ones, they don't have the tax money coming in. They don't have the dollars where they can make up for that loss in funding. Salt Lake City probably would have been able to figure it out. They've got enough income and revenue that they can do that. But you go to Summit County, you go to, down towards, some of these other more remote counties, they don't have that funding. And so they're scared of the retribution that they would get by, again, not playing nice.
Meyer saw our coverage, specifically this video here that we obtained, shared with you last Wednesday, which showed a deputy in Summit County experiencing radio failure, trying to call out to dispatch while responding to a 911 hang-up call alone.
It's one of the reasons why I decided to speak out, because I think that anyone that would put these, political decisions above the brave men and women that are out there protecting us, whether they're on the fire side or the police side, they should be ashamed with the way this project was handled. And the system, frankly, shouldn't have been launched without better testing being done to make sure that these types of things weren't going to happen.
How long could these fixes, in theory, take?
Oh my gosh, that's such a complicated question, right? Because the technological piece, in theory, those could be fixed overnight. If it's a firmware issue, you can download that firmware, but there's money, there's costs involved, right? And if these agencies don't have the money or the technical expertise to fix that, these problems could continue for a while. There's no saying how long it could go on.
Meyer said to me that the politics in this case are taking precedent over safety, specifically, as you heard there, citing the Utah Communications Authority. So I asked the Department of Public Safety Commissioner Jess Anderson about this on Friday, including this question about politics and public safety. You can watch that interview and all of our coverage on this right now, both on our KUTV YouTube page and also on our website, KUTV.com.